I am talking to Cole Stanley, and he is a candidate for mayor in Amarillo. And that election is coming up in May, I believe.
May 6th, man.
Hey, welcome back. You've been on before with me.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me again. I always enjoy coming over here, get to do your show, and love catching up with you. So I'm sure today will be a fast 15 minutes again, but we'll see what we can get done.
It will, but I hope this won't be the last one. I hope that as you become mayor, if you do, that we'll continue these conversations with some frequency.
I agree. I think that's a good thing, and that's my goal, is to get seated down there May 6th. That'll hit us here before you know it. Mm-hmm. And then keeping in line with being accessible, being accountable, and being available. You know, those are things.
Accessible, accountable, available.
You know, so if you call me, I'll answer.
AAA.
I'll come back. I promise.
Okay.
So
I'm doing this interview without notes, so I don't know what all we'll be talking about exactly, but we'll just jump in there and talk about whatever comes to either one of our minds to talk about. First of all, how many people are running for mayor here?
So we have 6 in my race. So myself and 5 others. There's 2 of us that are returning or incumbents, even though we're not incumbents because we've given up our seat.
Yeah.
So I'm seated as place 1 right now, and Frida Powell is seated as place 2.
Okay.
She announced before I did. I told her I couldn't let her have all the fun by herself. And so now we're both in there for that center chair. And then there's 4 newcomers that are out there, and from what I can tell, I think everybody's off to a pretty good start. Mm-hmm. And man, I've got some tough competition out there.
Yeah. Now, Alex Fairley mentioned,
yes.
He said it out loud, what I've said on the radio a lot of times, but I was shocked to hear somebody say it out loud in a kind of a political gathering, that he said there's a small group of people that are kind of used to running things in Amarillo. And I have believed that for years. I don't know if you want to comment on that or not, but my reason for bringing that up is which one of those 5 of you running would be the selection of the elite ones?
Yeah, kind of on the
if they get their way.
Yeah. So let me preface it just by saying I think that the concept, which it has some reality, that there is a select few that have kind of had their hand on. You know, the throttle, and they've helped to steer, you know, Amarillo, and that's kind of continued decade after decade. You know, I'm part of that problem in the way of like apathy. So like I'm like a lot of us, man.
You're hitting something.
I didn't have to go vote, and I didn't have a problem, and I wasn't complaining, and everything was kind of good, and I just got to live my life, run my business. Wow. And so I think that kind of comes about, and I think what you're seeing right now is a culture in us where, you know, bottom line, the world has changed since COVID, and we've seen things change governmentally. The current establishment, you know, the Biden administration that's in there right now, they obviously don't share what I would consider to be our values, our concepts, our ideals for government and the right role of government. And so, like, what you're seeing locally, I think, has played out what you're seeing nationally, is that we want control of our government, we the people, and the common everyday average guy is getting up off of his, you know, the sideline and coming out there and saying, I'll go to work. Now,
we got the feeling that we weren't in control of our own city government when COVID came along. And there were many of us that voted for Ginger Nelson for for mayor. I think I voted for how many times has she run? Twice?
She's been there 6 years. So she's
run 3 times.
She's won 3 times in a row.
Okay, I voted for her each time. So I like her, but she shocked us when she demonstrated that the mayor here evidently has a lot more power than anybody ever dreamed when COVID came along.
That's correct. I think we all witnessed that. And that's the one thing I've learned over the last 2 years. I bet you it's the biggest lesson I've learned. I thought federal was the big one, and that it had all the control, and state was then really important, and local didn't really matter. It's the exact opposite. Local matters most, and your local controls affect your life 90% more than your state and federal.
That's for sure.
And the way that our founding fathers set it up is that they believed that local control and local small government would do the best at governing the people, and then the states should have the rights to kind of steer the state, and each state should be independent. And then we would have a federal where, hey, we got to have these few principles, these foundations, but then anything that's not specifically spelled out is reserved for the state. And then anything within that state should really be determined by the city council and local governance. And so, like, we're getting back to that model. That's what we all want. We didn't realize how far we had drifted. So, like, lest we drift, let us pay much closer attention to what we have learned, right? So,
absolutely. My son is our pastor of our church, and he was talking Sunday about the local politics, and he said, when COVID came around, he said, wasn't Donald Trump that closed down our playgrounds where my kids couldn't go anymore? It wasn't Donald Trump that closed down our city restaurants. That happened locally.
That's right.
And yet a lot of people, they never vote in the local elections.
No, and then even May 6th, catches some people, because there's people out there listening right now, and they're like, well, I thought the election wasn't until November. And then we're all so busy. It's hard to raise your family and take care of your kids and work your job and still keep up with everything else you've got to. It's hard to pay attention to what's going on down at City Hall.
Well, we better start paying attention.
I think we're doing a better job. I bet you have. My hope is you have 25,000 people vote in this election.
Well, I hope so. We have a population of 200,000, and of course, a lot of those are kids, and a lot of those are maybe ineligible to be voters. But I would think maybe 80,000 or more are actually people.
I think it's 70,000 somewhere
that
in
are
there
eligible to vote.
Your registered voters,
and yet 13,000, isn't it? Elected the mayor last time around?
So I want to say I got around 10,000 votes. I might have been just shy of that, but then my two competitors probably split up the rest of that 50%. So I don't know the number offhand, but I bet you the last election we had less than 20,000 people vote. And I think you've seen it down 13, 14, 15,000 probably, and maybe a high turnout is 20. And if we could get it to 25, then, my goal in this, and I really like the landscape. If you look at place 1 through 4, and you look at the mayoral candidates, we have the best opportunity at a true representative government. You have so many different people that are coming to the table from different walks of life and different perspectives. And you have an opportunity for it to truly be organic, where you don't have any one system in place that's really driving this. And so, I have some big supporters, and I've got my name out there, but so does the other side. And so we're going to give ourselves an opportunity to really test that true local representative form of government.
When you ran at that time, I guess I shouldn't, I'd step out and try to speak for other people, but I have listened as other people have talked, and so I don't think I'm the only one that feels this way. But I felt like that that most of the city council was just going along with whatever the mayor said. She said, "We're all in it together." That was a catchphrase here. We're all in this together. And a lot of us didn't like what we were in, especially the shutdowns, the lockdowns, and all of that. And then Cole Stanley comes along, gets elected, and you're a different kind of cat, so to speak.
Definitely a different breed from what's down there.
So we thought we have a voice now that we didn't have with the others. And I've interviewed nearly all of the others. Frida is the only one that has never come for an interview, but she's scheduled to come now.
Well, that's great.
So I'm excited about that because I like her. I like her as a person. I like Ginger as a person. I just didn't like the fact that we felt shut out, that our input wasn't wanted, and that our obedience was wanted and demanded almost. And then we had a voice. Well, Cole Stanley. Am I right? Did you get buck up against opposition within the council?
Oh yeah, I don't think you have to have paid attention to too many meetings to see that that's fairly evident. And so obviously there was a cohesiveness on that council beforehand where it was important that they had all kind of discussed it and talked about it before it came into the public. It was important that they got on board, even if they had disagreements, that they all got behind it and they all ran with it. And principally, that's a philosophical difference for mine. For me, in the way of like being consistent in your vote means, no, I believe this to be the right way or that to be the wrong way. I will support, I won't support. And so on things where we did it the wrong way, in my opinion, I wasn't going to turn around a week later and then hoorah it and say, oh, no, I'm in favor of it now because the council moved. No, I'm in favor of the council continuing to be ran effectively. And that's the choice the council made. And I want to assist in any way I can, but I've got to maintain my voice and maintain my vote. I'm still against what we're doing. And I still like that we could have done something different. But I definitely took a different approach to it. And I know that ruffled some feathers. It doesn't mean I'm the anti, growth guy or the everything is no at all. I mean, I've supported many, many more things than I've been opposed to. But the things I've been opposed to, they didn't listen to what you said.
Yeah, well, see, that's the point. The taxpayers said no to the civic center, a brand new civic center. I don't think most of us are against, doing some fixing up and some remodeling of what we have. But that was something that was put out to the voters, and it said no. And the city council figured out a way to do it anyway.
Well, they sure tried. And the voters said no to a $250 million business deal.
Yeah.
And I agreed with that in the way of like, it didn't make sense at the time. You were coming through COVID and into a recession, obviously.
Yeah.
And it didn't make sense in the abilities. I mean, you didn't even have the ability to meet and do things like that and to host these functions. So it was really bad timing. But then the business plan that they put out didn't even make sense. Like, did not turn a profit. So what the voters said no to in that election, then they came back and they said, well, we're bringing back a $500 million business deal that not only do we bring this back twice what the cost was before to what you said no thank you to, we're also going to tell you we've looked for private funding.
Yeah.
And don't have one private entity that's willing to put cash in the deal. Now we've come up with ways to say that it's publicly private, partnership in the form of advertising and different naming rights and things like that. But we had that all along. That didn't bring a new investor to the table. So it was 100% on the taxpayer's back. And then, Mayor Nelson had put out that we had to do it right then. And all I asked for was 2 weeks. Just give me 2 weeks to listen to my citizens, to look at this deal, to review it. I'd only been given 3 days to review everything that they had been working on for months. Yeah, 3 days. And so by the time I had been working on it for 3 days, my request was, just give me 2 weeks, let's table this and let's bring it back. Well, Mayor Nelson said, we don't have 2 weeks. We have to act right now today. And the reason being was we had to lock in an interest rate. Well, the problem with that is it's a fluctuating interest rate that she was trying to lock in. It's not a fixed rate. You're sitting there telling everyone you're going to refinance this in 9 to 12 months at whatever the rate is in 9 to 12 months.
Yeah.
So whether you lock it in today or 2 weeks from today, you're still subject to whatever market conditions are in 9 to 12 months. So it was a fallacy there in that meeting, and I pointed that out. But it was amazing how many people didn't even catch that. That like, we don't have to hurry. We can have time, and we need to do what our citizens are supporting us. And even at the caution of the Attorney General, of like, if we do this, we've got to at least make sure it's something that the Attorney General will approve and endorse. And so the lawsuit obviously brought that back to the point where, okay, let's see if what you've done is legal. And it wasn't. And so like now, consequently, we all look back. I mean, honestly, I kind of wish the thing would have passed in 2016. My life would have been way better over the last 2 years, and we would have all saved hundreds of millions of dollars. But that's not the hand that we've been dealt today. So moving forward, what can we do with that existing facility? How do we get it to break even or make money? How do we get it to function at the will of the people? And how do we gear it towards family and sports and fun and things like that? So like, why are we not using that facility on the weekends to host different, tournaments from around the Panhandle? Why are we not doing more with it? And so those are the things we need to focus on over the next couple years while we get a better plan. And if I was to bring anything to my public, it will be a good business plan.
Okay, so the way that struck a lot of us when all that was happening is they're trying to deceive us. Nobody likes to be deceived. If they think they're being deceived, they get upset about it. And I think that's what happened.
I think the biggest issue there is, like, we say we want to be transparent. We say we want the trust from, and I say this all the time, and I know people probably are getting tired of hearing it, but you can trust me when you don't have to. And so, like, at any point in time when you get to look at my books, or you get to look at this, or you get to hear the conversation, it's easier for you to trust. Now, I'm not even asking you to trust me. Like, never trust the government. Now, you can trust the people that you put your trust in, but the government as an entity is an entity. It hasn't earned our trust. And we shouldn't put our blind trust and faith in the government,
Right.
Especially from a point of faith. Like, we say trust God. Well, a lot of times we say trust government and then question everything that may be religious.